Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is part 5 video on clean architecture and MediatR CQRS pattern in .NET 7 Web API. So in this video, we are going to implement MediatR iPipeline behavior. So what is iPipeline behavior? The iPipeline behavior exactly works like ASP.NET Core middleware, but it start executing and end execution happen within iMediator. So the iMediator.send usually used to invoke query and command handlers. So if you implement iPipeline behavior, then the logic inside of it start executes, then invokes query or command handler, later again go through pipeline behavior and executes the end logic. Okay. Basically, pipeline contains two sections of code. Okay, one section executes before executing the query or command, and another section execute after the completion of the query or command execution. Okay, so this is the diagrammatic representation. Okay, here you can understand whenever mediator query triggers, first it will execute the iPipeline behavior if they exist. Since iPipeline behavior contains two sections, right? So first before request gets executed. Like that, if you have n number of pipeline behaviors, if you configured, all the starting code of pipeline behaviors will execute. Then query or command execute. After the completion of query or command logic execution, it again travel back to the pipeline behavior where the end logic execute. Okay, so it is almost like our middlewares only. Okay, so using iPipeline behavior in our sample, we are going to implement validations. Okay, so we will implement validation for validating this create each request payload object. So first, so for the validation, we are going to use Fluent validation library. Let's install its NuGet package. Okay, the required library is Fluent validation dependency injection. It will implicitly also installs the Fluent validation. Okay, copy the command. And we have to install this package in our application project. Okay, sure, terminal, make sure terminal is pointing to the application project path. Now add the package. Okay, so copy the command, paste over here and install it. Now to cross verify package installed or not, go to our application project and explore the CS project file. And here you can observe Fluent validation dependency injection library reference. Now let's register Fluent validation service in the register service file in application project. Here is the register service file. Services dot add validation validators from assembly. Okay, that is coming from Fluent validation library. Okay, and just pass currently executing assembly name here. Let's create a generic class that inherits iPipeline behavior, and in that class we are going to implement our request object validations. So inside of the application project, let's create a new folder like common. Inside of the common folder, let's add a new class like validator behavior. Okay, and this behavior is a T request and T response type, a generic class. Okay, and it will inherit pipeline behavior. Okay, and that comes from mediator. Nothing but we are implementing mediator middleware for validation. Okay, here also I can specify T request and T response. Generic for any kind of request object, we can use this validator. Okay, and where T request and that inherits our I request from mediator, where we specify T response. Okay, and let's implement the iPipeline behavior. Okay, it contains handle method. First thing, let's inject iValidator interface as a collection to capture the errors. Okay, so private read only enumerable of iValidator, validator of, we are validating request, right? T request, we have to specify the type. Okay, underscore validator, and let's import the namespace that comes from Fluent validation, iValidator. Okay, add constructor and inject the enumerable of our validator. Okay, validator of T request. Okay, let's go to our handle method. So here, this will captures any validation rules are applied to the request or object or not. So in the handle method, I will check for that request any validation is enabled. Okay, so if at least one validation is enabled, this if gets executes. Now where context equal to new validation context for my request object. Okay, which is T request, and I must pass my request where validation results equal to await. Okay, task, then all. I want to check all validation errors. Okay, so I can pass my validators object and select each individual validation. So I can validate each individual using validate async. Validate async. Okay, and we can pass our validation context on the cancellation token. Okay, so let me explain what I am doing here. So if you observe, validators will collect the all validation rules. Means, for suppose I have create object, right? So I have three properties. If I enabled three validation rules for each property, okay, all these three will be referenced into this validators collection. Okay, so here what I am doing means I am looping the each individual validation, a validation rule, and checking against the request object. Okay, since it is a async validate async, right? So I want to do validation for all the properties. That is why inside of when this task will complete, when every property and every validation rule is executes. That is why we are using task.when all. Okay, so we will get all the validation rules execution here. Okay, now finally what I can do from here, I can check for any failures in the validation. So to check the failures, validation results, okay, dot select many. I want to gather all the validation failures. Okay, dot errors. Okay, and I want to check where errors are not equal to null. Okay, and to list. I'm just gathering the error results. Okay, now if validate failure results, just I will check the count. Okay, count not equal to 0 means there are some exceptions. Then I can simply throw, I will throw the exception, means I am terminating the execution flow of our request or query command. Okay, fluent validation dot validate exception. Okay, and to that exceptions I will pass my failures. Okay, and finally I have to write return await async. Sorry, await next, I believe. Okay, so that's it. I have mentioned, right, middleware contains this must be out of if condition. Sorry. Okay, I have mentioned, right, our iPipeline behavior is also middleware, right? So it contains two parts of code where request execution code and response execution code. Here we don't have any response execution. So this part will first executes before our query or command handler execute. Okay, first this will executes. Here it is awaiting for next, right? Here it will stops executing further and it will goes to our query handler or command. After that, okay, after that it again return back to the pipeline. But here again we don't have any logic for execution after this await next. We are directly returning. So there is no code to execute. That means it will again goes back to our mediator.send method in the controller like that. Like this flow we have seen, right? Like this, it will go back to the mediator.send method. Okay. Let's register my validation behavior. Okay. In the register service. Register at request level. Okay. Means I am going to use transient. add transient for every request. Okay, integrate my validator behavior. So I will register like type of pipeline behavior. Okay, let me copy from here. Okay, and it is a generic type, right? So just open arrows, okay, and separated by comma. No need to specify the request type and response type because they are already generic types, okay. And next type of and import the namespace. Okay, now we have to register our validator behavior also just like pipeline behavior, okay. Okay. Now I have created the iPipeline behavior where it validates my request. Now finally let's add validation rules on my request object. For that, in the create beach, let me create a new class like create beach validator. Okay, this is a normal class. I want to just apply the rules on my request object. Okay, here is our create beach validator class. Now it should inherit abstract validator, I believe. Okay, that comes from Fluent validation, and we have to specify the request object. The request object is create each request. Okay, now let's add constructor. Inside of the constructor, we can access our request object properties. So let me access like can use. First, I have to apply a rule to access. Okay, so here, see, all my request object properties are coming. Here, I will specify each name. I will apply a rule. Okay, I will apply like not empty. Okay, that means each name is mandatory. Okay, so this beach create beach validator automatically recognized by the Fluent validator. Okay, how it will recognize means here we have already registered the service, right? Validator from assembly. So it will read all the Fluent validators that we create in the project. Okay, so that's it. We are done with our iPipeline behavior validation implementation. So let's test and close this. So let me run my API project. Okay, let's try to create one new record. Okay, let me send empty beach name and remaining properties are hashed. Since I applied only rule on beach name, right? It should not be empty. Let's try to execute the endpoint. See, I got 500 internal server error. Fluent validation. Beach name must not be empty. That makes sense, right? That means our validations are firing. Okay. So that's all about mediator pipeline and where we can implement API validation. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support by subscribing to channel. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.